Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm really happy you're here today because this topic is something almost all of us live every single day. Work, school, long days, short days, confusing days, boring days, all of it.
Yes, exactly. And if you've ever wanted to talk about your day in English but felt stuck, like you only say it was fine or it was busy, you're definitely not alone.
Today, we want to show you that you don't need big grammar or fancy words to talk about your work or school day. You already have the life experience. You just need simple, natural ways to share it.
And honestly, talking about your day is emotional too. Sometimes you're tired, sometimes proud, sometimes frustrated. Learning how to say those feelings in English can be very freeing.
In this episode, we'll speak slowly, naturally, and realistically, just like two people having a real conversation after a long day.
If you enjoy this video, please like it and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us keep going.
And don't forget, there's a PDF with the full conversation so you can read, review, and practice later.
All right, let's get into it.
So Leo, let's start very simply, because that's how real conversations usually begin. If I met you after work and asked, "How was your day?" What would you honestly say today?
Honestly, I would say it was a long day, but not a bad one. I had a lot to do, and at some moments I felt a bit overwhelmed, but I also felt productive by the end of the day. It's that kind of day where you're tired, but you know you did something useful.
I can really relate to that. Sometimes when I say long day, people think it was terrible, but that's not always true. A long day can also mean you were busy in a good way. Did anything specific make it feel long?
Yes, actually, I had several meetings one after another, and I didn't really have time to breathe between them. By the afternoon, my energy was lower, and I had to push myself to stay focused. When I say I had to push myself, I mean I forced myself to continue even though I was tired.
That's a great expression, by the way, to push yourself. I use that a lot. Today, my day was quieter, but in a strange way. I didn't have many tasks, but I felt mentally tired. Do you ever feel that kind of tired?
Yes, definitely. Mental tiredness is real. Even if you don't move much or do heavy work, your brain can feel exhausted. On those days, I sometimes feel guilty, like I didn't do enough, even though I know that's not true.
That guilt feeling is very common. Sometimes we measure our day only by how busy we were, not by how present or focused we were. When someone asks you about your workday, how do you usually answer in English?
I used to give very short answers, like it was okay or it was busy, and then I stopped. I didn't know how to continue. But now I try to add one more sentence, even a simple one. For example, it was busy, but I learned something new. Or it was okay, just a bit stressful.
That's such an important tip. You don't need a long story. Just one extra sentence can change everything. For example, today I could say, "It was calm, but I felt a bit distracted." That already sounds more human.
Exactly. And another useful phrase is I dealt with. When you say I dealt with emails or I dealt with a problem, it means you handled or managed something during the day. It sounds natural and professional, but it's still simple.
I like that one a lot. Today I could say, "I dealt with some small issues that kept coming up." And that explains why the day felt tiring even without big tasks. What about school days? When you think about your school years, how would you talk about a school day?
I would probably say something like, classes were intense today, or I had back-to-back classes. Back-to-back means one after another with no break. That phrase is very useful for both school and work.
Yes, back-to-back is such a real-life expression. I hear it everywhere. When I had back-to-back meetings, I felt like the day just disappeared. Did you have a favorite way to describe a good school day?
A good school day for me was when I felt engaged. I might say, classes went by fast today, which means time passed quickly because I was interested. That's a positive way to talk about your day without sounding too excited or too flat.
That's true. Time went by fast is such a natural phrase. Today, for me, time went slowly in the afternoon, and that's when I knew I needed a break. Do you usually talk about breaks when you talk about your day?
Sometimes, yes. I might say, I barely had a break, which means I had almost no rest time. Or on a better day, I could say, I finally took a proper break, meaning a real, relaxing break, not just checking my phone.
That's another very relatable point. A proper break sounds simple, but it says a lot. When learners hear native speakers, they often think everything sounds advanced, but it's really these small phrases that make the difference.
I agree. And emotionally, talking about your day in English can help you feel more confident. You're not just practicing English, you're sharing your life. That makes the language feel more personal.
Yes, and that's what we want for you listening right now. You don't need to impress anyone. You just need to be understood. Tomorrow, when someone asks, "How is work?" you can try one small change in your answer.
Even something like, it was tiring, but I'm glad it's over, is honest and very natural. It shows emotion without being dramatic.
And if your day was good, you can say, "It was a good day overall." Overall means when you look at the whole day, not just one moment. That's another helpful everyday word.
That's a great one to remember. When I say overall, I feel like I'm giving a balanced picture. Not perfect, not terrible, just real.
Real is the key word here. Real days, real feelings, real English. And you're allowed to speak slowly. Think for a moment and then answer. Conversations don't have to be fast to be natural.
Absolutely. And remember, every time you talk about your day in English, even in a simple way, you're building confidence step by step.
I think that's a perfect place to pause for now.
So, Sophie, earlier we talked about answering simple questions like, how was your day? But sometimes people ask follow-up questions, and that's where many learners feel nervous. For example, someone might ask, what did you work on today? How would you answer that naturally?
That's such a good point. I think the key is not to explain everything. You can choose one main thing. For example, I could say, I mostly worked on planning and answering messages. That's it. It's short, clear, and honest.
Yes, and the word mostly is very helpful there. It means for the most part, or mainly. You don't need details. Today, I could say, I mostly worked on a project that's been taking a lot of my time lately.
I love that you added lately. That word makes your sentence sound very natural. It means recently, but it feels more conversational. When I use it, I feel like I sound more relaxed in English.
Exactly. And when someone asks about a difficult day, it's okay to say that too. You can say, it was a bit stressful, or I had a few challenges today. Challenges is a soft word. It doesn't sound too negative.
That's true. A bit stressful is another great phrase. A bit helps you sound balanced, not too extreme. For example, it was a bit stressful, but manageable. When something is manageable, it means you could handle it.
I really like that word, manageable. It shows strength, not weakness. Today, one task was challenging, but manageable, and that's very real life. Not every problem is a disaster.
Definitely. And for people who study, the same ideas work. You can say, I had a lot of assignments, or I spent most of the day studying. You don't need to explain the subject unless someone asks.
Yes, and if you want to explain more, you can add one simple feeling. For example, I spent most of the day studying and it was tiring. That already feels like a complete answer.
I notice that many learners think they need perfect grammar before speaking, but what really matters is connection. If someone understands you and feels you, the grammar doesn't have to be perfect.
I completely agree. When I stopped trying to sound perfect, my English improved faster. Talking about my day became easier because it was something I already knew well.
Let's talk about another common situation. Someone asks, "Are you busy these days?" That's a very normal question. How do you usually respond?
I usually say, yes, I've been pretty busy lately, or not too busy, but I have a lot going on. A lot going on is a very useful phrase. It means many things are happening in your life.
That's such a good one. I use a lot going on when I don't want to explain everything. It keeps the conversation open without pressure.
Exactly. And if you're not busy, that's okay too. You can say, things have been fairly calm, or it's been a slow period at work. slow period means work is lighter than usual.
I love fairly calm. It sounds peaceful. When my work is calm, I feel like I can breathe more. But sometimes calm days make me feel a bit uneasy, like I should be doing more.
I feel that too. And that feeling is very human. You can even express that in English. You could say, it's been calm, but it feels strange. That honesty makes conversations deeper.
Yes, and depth doesn't mean complexity. It just means truth. Another question people often ask is, what time did you finish? That one can feel very specific.
True, but the answer can still be simple. I finished around 6, or I stayed late today. Stayed late immediately tells a story without details.
And the opposite works too. I finished early today. Sounds very positive. Sometimes finishing early feels like a small win.
It really does, and you can add emotion to it. I finished early today, so I felt relieved. Relieved is a great word for after work or school.
Yes, relieved is perfect for that moment when pressure disappears. Today, I felt relieved when I closed my laptop. That moment felt very quiet and satisfying.
That's such a relatable image. And listeners, notice how Sophie didn't use any difficult words, just clear feelings and simple actions.
Exactly. Let's also talk about complaining a little, because that's part of real conversations too. It's okay to say, it was one of those days, which means a difficult or annoying day.
I love that phrase. One of those days says everything without explaining anything. Today was one of those days for me, honestly. Really? What made it feel like that?
Really? What made it feel like that?
Small things kept going wrong. Nothing serious, but many little issues. By the end of the day, I felt drained. Drained means all your energy is gone.
That word fits perfectly. When I feel drained, I know I need rest, not motivation. And saying that in English is powerful. It shows self-awareness.
Yes, and if you want to sound softer, you can say, I'm a bit drained. Again, a bit helps keep the tone gentle.
I think that's something many learners don't realize. English speakers often soften their language. They don't always speak in strong extremes.
Exactly, and that makes conversations feel safer. When you talk about your day like this, people often respond with understanding, not judgment.
That's true. And then conversations naturally continue. Someone might say, I know that feeling, or I've been there. That's connection.
And connection is why we learn languages in the first place. Not just to pass exams or get jobs, but to feel less alone.
I really love that. Talking about your work or school day in simple English is not a small skill. It's a daily life superpower.
And you build it slowly, day by day, sentence by sentence. You don't need to rush.
Exactly. Let's pause here and let everyone take a breath. You know, Leo, something else that comes up a lot when talking about work or school is explaining your role. People often ask, what do you do? And that question can feel surprisingly stressful in English.
Yes, that question used to make me freeze. I felt like I needed a perfect, impressive answer. But over time, I realized that simple is better. Now I usually say, I work in an office, and I mostly handle reports and communication.
That's such a clear answer. You're not trying to sound important, just understandable. I think many people forget that what do you do is usually just small talk, not an interview.
Exactly. And if you study, you can say, I'm studying engineering, or I'm a student and I'm focusing on my final year. You don't need to explain everything unless the other person is really interested.
That's true. And if you don't like your job or you're not sure about it, that's okay too. You can say, I'm still figuring things out. That sentence feels very honest and human.
I love that phrase. Figuring things out means you're in progress, not stuck. Many people in their 20s and 30s feel exactly like that.
Yes, and when you talk about your day, it's also common to talk about people. Colleagues, classmates, teachers. How do you usually mention them?
I keep it simple. I might say, I worked with my team today, or I had a long discussion with a colleague. The word colleague is very useful. It means someone you work with, but it sounds neutral and professional.
That's a good point. For school, you can say classmates. For example, I studied with a few classmates after class. That sounds very natural.
Yes, and when something good happens with people, you can mention that too. My team was very supportive today. Supportive means they helped you emotionally or practically.
I love that word. Feeling supported at work or school can really change your whole day. Today, one kind message made my day better, even though the work itself wasn't easy.
That's such a real experience, and you can express that simply in English. You don't need to describe the message in detail. Just saying it mattered is enough.
Another thing people often talk about is pressure. Deadlines, exams, expectations. How do you talk about pressure without sounding too negative?
There's a bit of pressure right now, or things are a little intense these days. Intense means strong or demanding, but it's not dramatic.
Yes, a little intense sounds very natural. For students, exam season is intense is something everyone understands immediately.
And when pressure ends, you can say, things should calm down soon. That sentence gives hope, which is nice in conversation.
Hope is important. Even saying, I'm looking forward to the weekend can change the mood. Looking forward to means you're excited about something in the future.
That's one of the first phrases I learned, and I still use it all the time. After a hard week, saying I'm really looking forward to some rest feels very comforting.
Rest is such an underrated topic. When someone asks about your day, you can also talk about how you plan to relax. I'm planning to take it easy tonight. That means you won't do much.
I like that phrase, take it easy. It's very friendly. Today, I plan to take it easy because I feel mentally tired.
And that's perfectly okay. Talking about rest in English is part of talking about life. Not everything has to be productive.
Exactly. And sometimes your day isn't special at all. On those days, you can say, it was a pretty normal day. That's a complete and natural answer.
Yes, pretty normal is something I say a lot. Normal days are still days. They don't need a story.
And if you want to continue the conversation, you can always ask back, what about you? Or, how was your day? That keeps things balanced.
Asking back is such an important skill. It shows interest and it takes pressure off you. You're not carrying the whole conversation alone.
I remember when I started doing that, conversations felt much easier. I didn't feel like I was being tested anymore.
That's such a good way to describe it. Conversations are not tests. They're shared moments.
And when you make mistakes, it's okay. If you say something a bit wrong but people understand you, that's success.
Yes, communication is about understanding, not perfection. Your accent, pauses, small errors, they're all part of you.
I think that's something we really want listeners to feel. You're allowed to sound like a learner. You're allowed to take your time.
And every day you talk about your work or school day in English, even for 1 minute, you're improving.
Slowly, naturally, without pressure.
Exactly. And that's how English becomes part of your life, not a burden.
I think that's a great place to pause again. Sophie, before we finish, I think it's important to talk about one last thing. How to talk about bad days without feeling awkward or negative, because not every workday or school day is okay.
I'm really glad you brought that up. Bad days are part of life, and pretending they don't exist doesn't help anyone. In English, you don't need dramatic words to explain a hard day. You can simply say, it was a rough day.
A rough day is such a useful phrase. It means difficult, tiring, or emotionally heavy. Today wasn't terrible for me, but last week I had a rough day where nothing went as planned.
And that phrase works everywhere. Work, school, family life. You can even soften it more by saying, it was a bit of a rough day. Again, that a bit makes it sound gentle and honest.
Yes, and if someone asks why, you can choose how much to share. You could say, there were a few issues at work, or I was feeling overwhelmed. Overwhelmed means you've had too much to handle.
That word describes modern life so well. Feeling overwhelmed doesn't mean you're weak. It just means you're human. And being able to say that in English is actually very powerful.
I agree. And if you don't want to explain at all, that's okay too. You can say,
It's hard to explain, but I'm okay now. That closes the topic politely.
That's such an important point. You don't owe anyone a full story. English gives you ways to protect your space.
Exactly. On the other side, there are days when something small goes well, and you want to mention it. For example, one good thing today was, that's a beautiful way to shift the conversation.
I love that phrase. One good thing today was finishing my tasks early, or one good thing was a nice conversation with a colleague. It shows balance.
Balance is key. Life isn't all good or all bad. And when you talk about your day in English, showing that balance makes you sound very natural.
Another situation people often face is when they feel stuck in their routine. Same work, same schedule, every day. How do you talk about that?
I usually say, every day feels the same lately. That sentence is simple but very expressive. Lately, again, makes it sound natural.
Yes, and you can add emotion without being dramatic. It's been a bit repetitive, and I feel bored sometimes. Repetitive means the same thing again and again.
That's a great word to know. And if you're trying to stay positive, you can say, I'm trying to stay motivated, which means you're making an effort to keep going.
I think many listeners will connect with that. Trying to stay motivated is a daily effort, especially at work or school.
And when motivation comes back, you can talk about that too. I felt more motivated today, or I finally found my focus again. Those sentences show change.
Change is such a big part of our days, even in small ways. Sometimes the biggest win is just getting through the day.
Absolutely. And saying, I got through the day is a very real sentence. It means the day was hard, but you survived it.
I've said that many times, and it always feels honest. Another thing people worry about is sounding boring when they talk about their day. But normal days are not boring.
Exactly. Saying nothing special happened, but it was okay is a complete and valid answer. Not every day needs a highlight.
And sometimes okay is more than enough. Okay can mean stable, calm, or simply fine. It doesn't have to mean bad.
That's such an important reminder. Words carry emotion, but context matters too.
Before we end, I want to remind listeners of something very important. When you talk about your work or school day in English, you are not performing. You are sharing.
Yes, you're sharing your time, your energy, your experience. That's meaningful, even in simple sentences.
You don't need perfect grammar. You don't need advanced vocabulary. You just need honesty and a few everyday phrases.
And those phrases will become easier the more you use them. One day, you'll answer, "How was your day?" without thinking.
And that moment feels amazing because it means English is no longer something separate. It's part of your life.
Exactly. And remember, you can always pause, think, and continue. Silence is allowed in real conversations.
We really hope this episode helped you feel more confident and more relaxed about talking in English.
If you listened to this after a long day, we hope it felt like a small rest.
And if today was a good day for you, we hope you enjoyed sharing that feeling with us.
Thank you for spending this time with us.
Take care of yourself, and we'll talk again soon.